What up, random rockers? Alright. So, John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, I believe. Which, according to what was said in the quote for the film, I believe it's prepare for war. And it'll make a little bit more sense, given the way they chose, which will only make the ending seem a little bit more understandable. This film is the third, of course, in John Wick films, and literally leaves off after Chapter 2. You could quite literally go back and watch the first two immediately before you go see it in the theater, and you wouldn't have missed anything, basically. So, this film, starring Keanu Reeves, of course, and the directors who were basically the names I'm blanking on, but I know for a fact were the stuntmen in The Matrix. Lawrence Fishburne's character, the character of Winston, I don't know why I'm blanking on the actor's name who plays him. Seen him in a few other things, and he's good. He's pretty good. So, like Deadwood. Though I have yet to see Deadwood, actually. But, anyhow. I don't understand what complaints are with the story. I still feel like they're still doing the world building, but they're definitely escalating it to a certain point. And John Wick does make decisions, and they do sort of make sense, and it really, the film itself depends on how you see in the other two. Some people will, for some reason, think it'll make you seem like he's more of a dick about it, but for the most part, it's, if you hadn't seen even the first one, especially given the first 10 minutes, and why, and then we find out a little more about him. Here, in fact, he's technically Russian, because he goes through certain things, and through this form of world building and some of other deeper things about him just kind of going through and repaying a bunch of stuff, and going through Domino to get him to where he needed to go to fix his issue. And upon the choice of him fixing his issue, it just may not come over as well in terms of decision, but then when he makes another decision to kind of, because of what Winston had said, changing his mind with that. Some people may I don't find it jarring at all. I felt everything flowed well together. The only decision was Winston's later one, but it kind of paints him in a dark, even worse picture by doing so. And plus, I love the way they're trying to end this, and it kind of comes a little full circle more so towards The Matrix. Especially when it comes to Lawrence Fishburne's character, his involvement. He doesn't get it. He does kind of have a line that's kind of cool, but not, sure, the dialogue's kind of iffy here and there, but it's more the performance and the delivery of those that make them work in that way that most films that seem sort of mindless action. And it's not that there isn't that there. I feel like it's kind of starting to become more like the raid films. And that becomes quite clear because there is a scene where one of the guys that has been involved in the past two, in all of the past two raid films, that has been their stunt coordinator, is actually winds up involved in this film. So, which also makes me wonder if that actor is going to come back again? Because they set it up to where he'll come back again for the next film, but they also set up maybe a possibility a certain other actor might show up again. Halle Berry does play a nice little role that is sort of forms some kind of history with John Wick. And that role is actually, and her action scenes are actually really good. This, for any chance of her being an action star and doing so in a way that makes up for what we wound up getting out of her from Catwoman and Die Another Day performances that literally killed her career, or the momentum she would have had in her career. This seems like it might pick things up a little bit, but I mean, it's and she surfaces well, but it's more so the dogs that make up for that, and kind of in an ironic way, given how technically all this started. Which, you know, about most of what I'm kind of saying has been in the trailer without giving away spoilers at this point. And the thing is, the biggest action scene is kind of in the beginning of the film, and you definitely get that vibe of how almost everyone is kind of sort of thinking. Yes, almost everyone is kind of sort of out to get him because of him being excommunicado. And the knife scene, the one fight in the kind of sort of pawn shop guns, sort of the pawn shop weaponry, armory place. Wow. I don't think anything got as more brutal or as intense, necessarily. Everything else seemed sort of by number. After that, kind of comes off action scene-wise for the most part. A little by the numbers, at least up until the finale that we do get, which even that is still so-so. It works it works if you're going by certain logic, I guess, from even the first Raid film, I guess. But that's about it. Because that's where it gets to the point where it kind of starts to become more like Raid as opposed to kind of what it once was as its own little thing. Which, I mean, and as far as, that's the one thing that also helps is that the choreography and the way they do them, you can see how the action plays out. It's timed well. It's not sloppy and shaky cam messes and all that stuff. Or at least it's not done in a way that's tasteful like what the earlier films, the earlier Bourne films used to be like, you know? Before films like Alex Cross, sorry for the plane. Anyway, before Alex Cross screwed things up for everybody. Yeah. Oof. Keanu Reeves does what he can with his performances, and clearly he knows how to handle his action scenes. So, and it definitely shows here. And I think that's about it without entirely spoiling things, but it seems Winston makes a decision, and at this point I'm going to do some slightly small spoilers here and there that I didn't already touch upon that isn't exactly spoilery. In 3, 2, 1. Yeah, we all at this point already know there's going to be a John Wick 4, and what they're setting up is that all the things that he's been doing throughout this whole time is for him to finally get to see the man at the head table. The man in charge of it all. Which is living in some remote location in the desert. And he's basically gets picked up. And all the things he's done, and through this book that he gets at this library that was his wife's, had the picture in it, everything, and he basically gives up on his brain, his marriage. The one thing that helped play a part in giving him his out. And he was basically realizing the only way he'd have to basically end all this is to get back in this entire time. And then then because of his conversation he had with Winston, he realizes the choice that he made. That choice that he did make, and then he kind of backs out on it. Chooses to back out on that choice. But you kind of understand, but Winston makes a good enough point to why. But the only issue with that possibly comes across is Winston's follow-up decision after all this, to where it seemed that he had, at this point in him saying this, manipulated him, and using that friendship he so-called has with him to basically show a sort of dominance of power to allow him to basically put him out of his situation. And without resolving John Wick's, and instead basically turns on him completely. The one sort of friend he still kind of had left, which was at the Continental itself, kind of basically betrayed him and nearly got him killed, and the only person that seems left around that's seems to have, I guess, made up for what happened with him has been Lawrence Fishburne's character, where he's basically left her dead, and he should have basically died then. And if that was the way they were going to end John Wick's character, I kind of, if they weren't setting up for a sequel, I would be underwhelmed. But because we are set up for a sequel, and now knowing that we are getting it going into this, really does help, I think, elevate this movie a little bit more, and makes the decisions that do happen here feel more understandable, as opposed to what we did get. So, overall, I can't say that it is necessarily the best, but I love the fact as an action film series at this point, John Wick has been consistent. Consistent enough that I can't necessarily give it a straight up bad review. And overall, it's a thumbs up for me. I should have probably said this before I started the spoiler spot, but, you know, at this point, it's been already a little over 2 weeks, I guess. So if you hadn't already seen it, I mean, at this point, given everything and the hype going into it, I guess, you know, I wasn't expecting too much given the second film, but I was fine with it. The story still had even though that one was more jarring, the way they chose to end things as opposed to how they did it here. Even though, but it worked. So sorry, distractions everywhere, and I liked it overall. So yeah, like I said, thumbs up, guys. I mean, you're still keeping my attention, and I'm willing to still, at the very least, see how this is going to end, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking forward to them pretty much taking out the high table at this point. The real question is how are they going to end this? End all this, because if they're dragging, the only thing that will bother me is if they don't end things here with John Wick 4. There is no point in them kind of continuing this series and just dragging it out even further. I understand if some people for some reason feel that way about this one, and I think I just spit in the camera. Oh boy, and I'm sorry. But anyway, I'll fix that before in my next review. So, John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, or Prepare for War, I guess in Latin, which is exactly, like I said, which is exactly what's happening. The real question is, what are they going to call that Chapter 4, aside from Chapter 4, like they wound up doing with this film? Not sure. But, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on John Wick Chapter 3? Did you agree with most people, or are you like me and maybe Jay Washington, Mad Titan himself, and thought this was actually just a pretty solid film overall, in spite of a few things? Just leave a comment below, let me know, rock that like button with thrust if you must. Link in description below to my Facebook page, where you should also like and follow me there. And, as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you in the next video, which we'll be talking about Godzilla King of the Monsters. Which should also be up around the same time as this one. So if you haven't already checked it out, go check that out too. Take care, y'all.